morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Richfield, Minneapolis American Legion for the premier edition of Championship Wrestling from the Twin Cities, sanctioned under the auspices of StW Main Wrestling. The crowd is absolutely nuts, Ed, and that's the way we like it.
For those of you watching this on the internet, this is not 1980, although it may appear that way. It's 2014, and we're bringing you back to the studio days of professional wrestling.
You know, so many people have talked about that, the old AWA days at the Calhoun Beach Hotel, the television tapings. They go to the internet and they see the stuff from Memphis and the Georgia Championship Wrestling. So we're doing that, the old school studio format. We have a great evening of wrestling action ahead, including an appearance by a guy that I know you're very high on, the Northern States champ, Danny Duggan.
Well, Danny Duggan started working with us last year and very quickly rose through the ranks. Last summer, he captured the Northern States title. He's been pretty busy on the road, traveling across the country. Hasn't had too many opportunities here in Minnesota yet, but we're going to make sure that that happens real soon.
Absolutely, and with that, ladies and gentlemen, let's introduce you to the current Northern States heavyweight champion of StW Main Wrestling, Hotshot, Danny Duggan. Danny Duggan, as Ed alluded to a minute ago, you know, you're very busy not only in the United States, but of course up into Canada, overseas. Talk a little bit about what you've been doing since the last time we saw you.
Since the last time you saw me, I've been traveling the world, across the United States, Japan, across Canada, making a name for myself, and I cannot be happier to be back here in StW Main Wrestling in the great state of Minnesota.
You know, we've talked about the legacy. Okay, hold it. Apparently we got a technical glitch or something. Not quite. Oh, come on. No. Wait a minute. I apologize to you, Danny. No, it's not their interview time at all. All right, excuse me, AJ LaRock and Ryan Slade. You know, I looked at what they call the booking sheet, and I don't believe this is your interview time.
Step back, champ. Because you're looking at the Canadian Crusher, AJ LaRock. You are looking at Ryan Slade, and for all these dumb people here in Minnesota, in case they couldn't figure it out, we are the cream of the crop. We are Canadian. Let me make it... Let me make it very clear. We don't want to be here amongst these people. We don't want to be here amongst these two old fogies. And you come to Minnesota, you mingle with these people, you genuinely enjoy talking to these idiots. It boggles my mind. Have you taken a look at each and every one of these people? They might very well be the most ugliest people in all of the United States of America. They sure as heck don't measure up to Ryan Slade and the Canadian Crusher. And as I look at you, standing here all happy in your pants as the champion a long lineage of great champions, and I question why. Why are you the champion? I can tell you this. You will not be the champion for very long. And Ryan Slade and myself are going to prove that just like these people, you really are a loser.
That's it. All right, that's it. That's it. Let's go to the first match. AJ, Ryan, hit the bricks.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard the debut, the premier edition of Championship Wrestling from the Twin Cities, from the Richfield, Minneapolis American Legion. Mick Karsh, along with my all-time favorite broadcast buddy, my old friend, reuniting after so many years, George the Authority Shire. And George, what a way to kick things off as we heard the bad mouth that this man, well, Ryan Slade, he actually didn't say anything. He was kind of like silent Lenny Montana out there. AJ the Crusher LaRock, of course, putting the bad mouth on our Northern States champion, hotshot Danny Duggan.
Well, you know, Mick, this is a great way to start off Championship Wrestling from the Twin Cities, StW Wrestling. And you're right, that interrupting the opening segment and the so-called Crusher getting in the face of our champion, I don't understand it, Mick.
Well, you know, AJ LaRock, he calls himself the Canadian Crusher. You know, certainly you and I will dispute that. We've seen some great crushers over the years, and I'm not sure that that guy is in the top 75. But nonetheless, they come here, they put the bad mouth on Danny Duggan, and what amazes me is that Danny Duggan himself is a Canadian, and these guys, LaRock and Ryan Slade, were acting as if Danny Duggan maybe was a traitor to the country or something for buddying up to the fans in the state of Minnesota.
Well, I'll tell you a real credit, Mick, to Danny Duggan. He certainly could have taken a shot at him and given him one right on the kisser, and he didn't. I commend him for that because he held his own. He let this so-called Crusher have his say and then just leave it alone at that. Probably the better man.
Once again, ladies and gentlemen, if you are just joining us on the internet, we are so excited to be bringing you what we call old school TV studio wrestling action. Back in the day, you and I are, certainly we grew up on this business and around this business, George, going back to the 1950s for yourself, myself just a little bit later on, but the old style studio format so near and dear to our hearts. We've watched it for years with the AWA. We're doing it again.
Well, you know, Mick, there's a certain feel that you and I have a hard time showing people, telling people about that studio, the old Calhoun Beach Hotel, as you mentioned at the onset of the program. But the fans were enthusiastic. It was a way to get the crowd to run, don't walk, to the ticket office. And we remember our old friend Marty O'Neill telling us to do that. And this is what we've got tonight. And I commend promoter Ed Hullier. Old school wrestling, making it a comeback right here in the Twin Cities.
Well, it's great. I love it. You love it. And certainly we're gonna bring back the golden age of wrestling. That's what we're gonna try to do. Now, there's nothing wrong with sitting in an 18,000-seat arena with some guy holding up a sign in front of your face if that's your thing. It doesn't happen to be our thing. We want to be up close and personal to the action here. And speaking of that, Ryan Slade is a very angry young man in the ring right now as Josh Kalisto kicked out of that pin attempt. Oh, wait a second, a little bit slow on the trigger there. Kalisto with an elbow. Ryan Slade, an absolutely tremendous physical condition. Oh, big power slam.
Well, based on what I saw at the onset of the program, I'd like nothing better than to have Slade just get it handed to him right here. He didn't say anything, you know, as you know, Mick, but he deserves to have a good slap right in the kisser.
Well, you know, we're not 2 minutes into the show. We're talking to the Northern States heavyweight champion, Danny Duggan, and a total lack of respect. This is our premier edition, as I said, Championship Wrestling from the Twin Cities. How absolutely despicable and disrespectful.
Well, if he's an example of what they are like in Canada, he certainly didn't do the country any justice tonight.
No, absolutely not. Ryan Slade, of course, with that reverse chin lock. Ryan Slade, a tremendously gifted young man. No getting around it. What I've noticed in his case over the last couple of months is the dark side of Ryan Slade has started to emerge. There was a time when he was pretty much a fan favorite all throughout the upper Midwest and into Canada, but something happened somewhere along the line, and I don't know if it was his association with A.J. LaRock or what did it, but this is a different kid in there.
Well, you know, Mick, they always say a bad apple can do it. And here's a guy who's gifted. He's got the talent. He's got the ability. As you said, he was a pretty good guy. He had it probably, but he got frustrated. And he's taking the easy route now, and the aggression is coming out. And this is the shortcut. I hope he can get beat right here tonight.
Referee Troy O'Brien in with a count at 2, and that's all. And again, you look at the expression on the face of Ryan Slade, very, very frustrated. Now he's jawing with the fans about ringside as the USA chant has picked up here. And what better place to pick up a USA chant than at an American Legion post?
Exactly right. We've got enthusiastic fans here who definitely would like to have this Canadian sent back up there and probably never come back.
Speaking of Canadians, boy, it wasn't that long ago, although I will say 28 years. You and I were up in Canada working for Tony Condello at the Winnipeg Arena. Oh, what a shot! Gee. Oh, what a shot!
I think this is it, Mick. I think Slade. Whoa! I thought Callisto had him here.
He kicked him right in the bridge of the nose,
did.
George.
Yeah.
I started to say it was back in '86. We watched Bruiser Brody and Bulldog Bob Brown in front of a sellout crowd at the Winnipeg Arena, and here we are, 28 years later. Wait a second now, Callisto taking a little bit of time here, going to the top rope. Not sure how advisable this is.
Do you remember Ray the Crippler Stevens? This is where he used to do it. Whoa!
In for the cover. He's got him crossbody. This would be an upset. Oh, man. Wow.
Nothing could be greater at this point than to have this Canadian just stopped right here.
And we got nothing against Canada at all.
Not
I mean,
at all.
they're tremendous
And I didn't
people up in
appreciate
Canada.
what they did
I'm
earlier
with
in the
you.
program.
I'm with you. Oh, there's that fisherman suplex. It's over.
Wow.
It is all over. Well, Ryan Slade gets the Duke, ladies and gentlemen, over a very game, but clearly outgunned Josh Callisto from right here in Minneapolis. So the premier edition of Championship Wrestling from the Twin Cities, StW Main Wrestling, starts unfortunately with a victory on the part of the guy who was so abrupt and rude a little bit earlier on, along with A.J. LaRock. Ryan Slade gets the Duke. We're coming back to the Richfield American Legion.
StW Main Wrestling makes its return to the Hopkins Pavilion Saturday night, July 19th. Already signed to the card is the match everyone's been waiting for, the 8th Level of Hate, featuring Scrap Iron Adam Pearce and Colt Boom Boom Cabana, who will look to settle the 7 levels of hate once and for all in a steel cage. Also signed to the card is StW Northern States Champion Danny Duggan. The Tangerine Dream, Ricky Love, is signed to the card, along with the Canadian Crusher A.J. LaRock. Ryan Slade will be in the house, and Sheik Arya Davari is signed to light up the Hopkins Pavilion. Live music and a party start at 4 p.m. at the Pavilion. Bell time is 6:30. Tickets are on sale now at StLDomainWrestling.com or at the Hopkins Pavilion box office. StW Main Wrestling action from the Hopkins Pavilion, benefiting the Hopkins Youth Hockey Association, Saturday, July 19th. Pre-match party at 4 p.m. with live music, opening bell at 6:30, fireworks immediately following. You won't want to miss it.
Banks! We don't need no stinking banks!
The Unbank is not a bank. It's an unbank. Open 7 days a week with convenient hours. The Unbank for cashing all types of checks. Instant cash loans up to $500. Get a MasterCard regardless of credit history. Free money orders. FDIC savings accounts. Fast bill payment. Phone cards. The Unbank, your friendly neighborhood financial center. Get cash on the spot whenever you need it. With over a dozen Twin Cities locations, chances are there's an Unbank open near you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, my guest at this time, a very special guest. It was back in, 1989, 1990? You've got the date, Morris Mural. I don't. Refresh my memory.
1990, I was Ring Starter of the Week on your TV show, TV 23, and today I'm Fan of the Week.
Isn't that something? Here's what's interesting about that, Morris. Morris Mural, ladies and gentlemen, our Fan of the Week. 23, 24 years goes by. You're progressing in life. And I've stayed basically doing the same thing, holding the microphone after all these years for Championship Wrestling from the Twin Cities under the sanction, of course, of StW Main Wrestling. Morris, a longtime wrestling fan. We had you back on SNR in the day because you know all the dates, you know all the names, you know all the places. Nothing has changed over the years.
No, it hasn't.
Talk to me as you look back on those wrestling dates, and you've got thousands of them. Is there one match of all the matches that you've watched that stands out in your mind as maybe your favorite over the years?
Well, there's so many of them I didn't count, but I'm going to give you my very first wrestling match that I went to. November 11th, 1977. Main event was Vern Gagne against Big Bad Bobby Duncombe. Vern Gagne won with the sleep hold. Bobby Heenan came out to check on Duncombe's match, and Heenan got whacked and really beat up by both the Gagnes that day. The next day at the Calhoun Beach Hotel, he was limping around.
You are absolutely amazing, and I'm just going to, for those fans who don't know how good this guy is and what he remembers, I'm going to throw a date out, a random date. Now you're going to tell me the day of the week that particular date that I throw at you. You're going to do this without having any prompt, any cue cards, nothing. Randomly, let's go back to April 7th, 1982. What day of the week was April 7, 1982?
It was a Wednesday.
You're sure about that?
Yes, 100%.
I don't know how you do it. I'm afraid of you, as I was years ago. But ladies and gentlemen, I got to tell you, there's fans in professional wrestling, and then there's super fans. And my good friend Morris Mural is in that latter category. My friend, you are fan of the week, well deserved. You got the T-shirt. I don't even have one of those. The promoter didn't even give me a T-shirt, but well earned. Our good friend, fan of the week, ringside of the week, man about town, Morris Mural.
They say that history is written by the victors, those that win the battles, but more importantly, those that win the war. For almost 3 years, Colt Cabana and myself did that. We warred all over this earth. And on July 19th, in Hopkins, Minnesota, we returned to the scene of the crime as we revisit what I will always call one of the biggest injustices in the history of professional wrestling. With every fiber of my being, I loathe the man that Colt Cabana is, the man he's become. And on July 19th, I make it my singular aim, my one remaining goal in professional wrestling, to end him, to destroy him, to finish the work that we have started. Some battles stand the test of time. Some feuds never end. They say that old habits die hard. And on July 19th, trust that they will do just that. For we find ourselves within a steel cage, wrestling's oldest, most brutal, most death-defying match. Some stories were meant to be written. Some stories were meant to be read. And then there are some chapters that should never go on paper. July 19th, we open the book. And when we close it, we close it for good.
Ladies and gentlemen, with our second matchup for this week on Championship Wrestling from the Twin Cities, StW Main Wrestling, Mick Karsh along with George Shire to call this one, and Dynamite Dan Jesser, who of course ingratiated himself to the fans here at the American Legion in Richfield, as he usually does, to do battle with the very, very talented Ricky Love. This kid, Ricky Love, has all the tools necessary to skyrocket here in Championship Wrestling.
Well, you know, Mick, Ricky Love, he's the kind of a guy we need in pro wrestling today. We need heroes. We need good guys. Dan Jesser comes out here. I think he's probably been watching some old Jesse Ventura and superstar Billy Graham interviews, because he tried to say he was the reflection of perfection, and this guy's nothing but a phony. I want Ricky Love to just give him a good slap across the kisser.
You know, Dan Jesser, you've known Dan just about as long as I have, going back almost 30 years, and nothing has changed with him. His mouth, his ego, his arrogance precedes him by about 10 minutes before he even gets into the ring.
Well, and he's a veteran, Mick. He knows the ropes, so to speak, and the guy could get the job done, but he always takes shortcuts. We're going to see him here. I hope Ricky Love can really just teach him a lesson. I'm going with youth here because I think that's what's going to take this match.
Well, we will see, ladies and gentlemen. Collar to elbow hookup. Dan Jesser, Ricky Love battling along the ropes. Dan Jesser, of course, was brought into the wrestling profession, and that's about the extent of that relationship, by Brad Rangens years ago, one of the great scientific wrestlers of all time. Dan was very close friends with the late, great Mr. Perfect, Kurt Hennig. He's chummed around with Brock Lesnar, so he's certainly running in some pretty damn good schools. But when he gets into the ring, it's all by himself, and he's got to get the job done.
Well, and I think what happens, Mick, is these guys, they just get a little bit frustrated. They decide to take the shortcuts. It's what we talked about in previous matches.
Jesser over the top. Nice maneuver on the part of Dan Jesser. Oh, but Ricky Love with that head scissors reversal. Both men to their feet.
And you know, Ricky Love.
Look at Jesser. He's hot.
There's that frustration again. We've got one of the best referees in Steel Domain in the ring, Jay Cwtc. He's a man who can keep control.
The senior official,
exactly,
as they say here in Steel Domain Wrestling. Cwtc has been around the block, no question about it. He doesn't take any guff from anybody in the ring, let alone a guy like Dan Jesser.
Well, and we need him in there with a guy like Jesser because he can recognize some of the shortcuts this guy's going to take.
Big shoulder tackle a second time by Jesser now, over the top, and again Jesser in control. Hip lock takedown, but again, Ricky Love, wait a second, now look at Jesser. Jesser's a smart guy, yeah, button, right on the button.
Now there's a guy who just made a mistake, Mick. You know, like you said, Jesser's been around a long time. You wouldn't expect that he would get cocky like that, but this is what happens. They're showing off to the crowd, and a young guy like Ricky Love here can just give him one.
You better believe it. And Jesser now taking his time. You know, he, as I said, Jesser knows what he's doing. He's paying attention to the referee's cadence. He knows exactly where he is at all time. Jay Cwtc, if you look, the cadence is not real fast. Some referees, they'll deliver that count on the outside of the ring. Boom, boom, boom. Jay Cwtc a little bit different. And Ricky Love is just begging Dan Jesser to come back in and finish this one.
Well, in a match like this, Mick, Ricky Love is a guy that if you get a victory over a veteran like Jesser, it means a lot for his career. It's a real boost. On the other hand, Jesser, if he loses, he's got to start climbing back up, and that's what this is all about. Ricky Love, he really needs to just stay on the attack because this is a chance for him.
You bet it is, and Jesser, very, very smart veteran move. He lulled Ricky Love into a false sense of security, drew him in, and rammed his head into the buckle, and now a series of stomps to the midsection. And this has always been the knock on Jesser. His ego gets the best of him. He's spending way too much time jawing with the crowd when you should be going on the attack against Ricky Love.
Well, I think what happens, Mick, is a veteran like this doesn't always take the young guys. Oh, that's going to hurt. But he doesn't take the young guys seriously, and sometimes that can be a detriment because Ricky Love has all the tools to get an upset here if he just stays on him.
Hard into the buckle, and
that's got to hurt,
yeah,
man. I tell you what.
That was some velocity, and the right
he
between
struts.
the.
Then he
Of course,
struts.
that's what I'm saying. There it is once again. Jesser wasting what could be valuable time as Ricky Love delivers 2 to the breadbasket, but Jesser gouge of the eyes, the great equalizer.
But you got to give Ricky Love here credit. He's staying on it. He's not giving up. He's staying focused. He knows.
Oh man!
He knows how important a victory here would be for him.
George, that move we just saw again. I mentioned the relationship with Dan Jesser and Kurt Hennig. That was absolutely textbook Kurt Hennig.
Picture perfect.
You got it.
Oh. The referee is reprimanding him, telling him to just keep it legal.
Well, you got to bring it up a little bit. You can't keep going below the belt like Dan Jesser is prone to do. Irish whip again, hard into the buckle. Jesser all the way across.
Oh,
nobody
man.
there. Nobody there, and Jesser couldn't stop his momentum. Look at Ricky Love now. Watch this. Oh, what a clothesline. Good Lord. Takes Jesser off his feet a second time. And now it's Ricky Love on the offense here, hard into the buckle. The Tangerine Dream.
Crowd is getting behind him.
Oh, man.
And
Gee.
no place to go with that drop kick. He had to take the full force.
Then he did it. Oh, my. That's got to do it. He drilled Jesser from here to South Dakota, and that's it. Ricky Love.
What a victory for Ricky Love.
Ricky Love gets the Duke, ladies and gentlemen, in front of a very, very appreciative crowd here in Minneapolis.
Hey,
Richfield.
Mick, wait a minute here.
Wait a minute. What's Aria? Aria Davari.
What is going on?
What in the hell?
Where did he come from, Mick?
I have no idea. What is Aria Davari? What is his beef with Ricky Love? He nailed him.
You are the ones that start phenomenons today that later the whole world will be talking about. It's you guys. You are the ones that start the CM Punks, that start the Mr. Andersons, that start the Colt Cabanas. It's up to you, and we appreciate you guys coming and putting your heart out and saying yes to the good guys, no to the bad guys. Here's your money. I love professional wrestling.
Colt Cabana, boom, boom. Colt Cabana, boom, boom.
StW Main Wrestling makes its return to the Hopkins Pavilion Saturday night, July 19th. Already signed to the card is the match everyone's been waiting for, the 8th Level of Hate, featuring Scrap Iron Adam Pearce and Colt Boom Boom Cabana, who will look to settle the 7 levels of hate once and for all in a steel cage. Also signed to the card is StW Northern States Champion Danny Duggan. The Tangerine Dream, Ricky Love, is signed to the card, along with the Canadian Crusher AJ LaRock. Ryan Slade will be in the house, and Sheik Arya Davari is signed to light up the Hopkins Pavilion. Live music and a party start at 4 p.m. at the Pavilion. Bell time is 6:30. Tickets are on sale now at StLDomainWrestling.com or at the Hopkins Pavilion box office. StW Main Wrestling action from the Hopkins Pavilion, benefiting the Hopkins Youth Hockey Association, Saturday, July 19th. Pre-match party at 4 p.m. with live music, opening bell at 6:30, fireworks immediately following. You won't want to miss it.